guys, McGregor here. Me and Gavin just saw It last night.
It is Andy Muschietti's adaptation of the classic Stephen King novel.
And as most of you probably know, this book, or this time movie, is about a group of kids informally known as the Losers Club, and they must band together to fight an evil clown that takes the form of their most dreaded fears. Right. So I was really excited for this movie. I'm not a big horror fan, but this movie looked really good. As you know, it broke the record for over some 100 million views on YouTube, and this movie just intrigued me. I was really excited for it. I thought the idea of a clown and a real clown coming out was a freaky concept, and this movie really excited me. I was really excited for it.
Yeah, and I kind of built my own expectations off of yours, because I never even heard of this before you told me about it. I mean, that was really, it was an interesting find for me, and I never read any of the Stephen King books, which I probably should, but I knew nothing about this going into it. I knew none of the background story. I knew nothing about the characters, about Pennywise, about what was going on, but I was excited about it because you were excited about it, so that's my kind of standpoint. Is I wasn't personally invested in it, but I still was very intrigued.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've never read a Stephen King book. He's never read a Stephen King book. We never read It, so our opinions could differ from others. But as a whole, I thought this movie, it was good, and I think it did have its flaws, and we'll get into that in a second. But as a whole, I thought this movie was good, especially the kids. I thought a lot of them was their acting debut, and I thought they were outstanding. I thought every one of them held their own ground. I thought they were very good. Yeah. And obviously, we're going to talk about Pennywise. I thought Bill Skarsgård was very good as him. Not anything Oscar-worthy, I would say, but I thought he knocked it out of the park, as good as Tim Curry in the 1990 version. And yeah, so this movie was enjoyable. Wasn't amazing. It definitely didn't live up to the hype that I had it with. It wasn't as scary at all as I thought it was going to be. But nevertheless, it was a good movie. It did have that Stand By Me / Goonies feel, with Stand By Me also being by a Stephen King book. And it did have that friendship feel, good character development within the kids, which is what I think about this movie.
A lot of people will find that it's scary and that it's really terrifying, but to me, the things that are terrifying to me are things that are demonic and things that have to do with hell and the devil. To me, a clown is not terrifying. So in that respect, I feel like, in the fear factor, it didn't get me that good. As a story, though, I thought it was interesting finding this weird band of characters all coming together at this strange town in the interesting point of their lives when they're transitioning into being adults, and watching how they create this bond between all of them and grow up together, and how they really learn to overcome their problems. So as a movie, I thought it succeeded in some places in the sense of storytelling and in the sense of being an effective dialogue for these things that it's discussing, which is development, characteristics of becoming who you are.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the one thing this movie had to get right was the bonding of the characters as a whole and becoming a band to defeat the clown. It's a force greater than themselves, and I thought the movie did that very well. At the end, there's a very good moment where they kind of just we're gonna fight this, and they band together, and that part was one of the best parts of the whole movie. Besides the horror, the part where they come together as a whole to fight a force bigger than themselves was awesome. It was awesome to see that. It was awesome to see them overcome their fears, and that's the point of the book and the point of the movie, and I think the movie nailed that very well. Had all the kids that are just scrawny little things that would fight a demon clown, and I thought they did that very well, and that was very well executed. So, like I said before, this movie definitely isn't perfect. It definitely did not live up to the hype, which I thought it would, and I think the main cause of it not living up to the hype is an overuse of, not necessarily CGI, but an overuse of unrealistic things that we know isn't real. So,
and that's a big concept of the movie too, is that these kids, they don't know if this clown, if this demon, if this entity is real, and they're fighting. They don't know if it's in their mind or if it's in their body. That's a central theme of it, and that is a perfect metaphor for them overcoming what they've got fabricated in their minds.
Yeah, and I thought in the trailers, what made this movie seem so scary is that a clown, people can do stuff. It's a real clown. It's physical. That's scary. But then near the end of the film, and in the middle of the film too, there's just some supernatural stuff.
There's crazy stuff going on.
That is not real at all. Yeah. And I get it. It's a metaphor for their fears, what they're the most afraid of, and he shapeshifts into that. But it's just the filmmakers could have done a way better job and showing a different way of their fears in a different complex way than just showing us CGI figures of them, and it's just so unrealistic. It doesn't feel
and
real.
There were points in the movie where it was super tense, and you didn't know what was going to happen. You thought it was going to be a jump scare, and then something, I'm not going to say what it was, but so, like, stupid things would happen.
Yeah.
And there's a way to execute horror, and there's a way not to execute horror. And I feel like this had both of those aspects because there were some absolutely terrifying scenes, but a lot of it was just so... It felt kind of out of the tone of what it was supposed to be, that there were points where we had a whole group of guys in there that maybe it's because we're a bunch of kids, but I mean, we were laughing pretty hysterically at a lot of this stuff that was supposed to be absolutely gut-wrenching and terrifying. So,
and I also regret to say that a lot of the scares are in the trailers. I didn't think I got scared once in this movie because I knew what was coming, and the things that they didn't show in the trailer were just unrealistic nonsense that I didn't think was scary at all. And there were parts where Pennywise was talking, I'm like, that's horror, that's scary, and then it would just go off into this bizarre thing that is not real. I mean, for example, the part where Georgie is in the sewer, like saw in the trailer, that part is raw. They're just talking back and forth. That's scary. And then near the end, something very stupid happens with Georgie. You probably already know what happens. He gets captured. You guys have seen it. And it's just so, his teeth come out and stuff like that, and it's just not real. It's just not scary.
It makes for a good horror. It's really, like, it's visual horror rather than conceptual horror, and that's a theme that's become really common today with things like Saw and with things like Annabelle and things like Insidious, and these movies that are meant to be like these terrifying movies. Is a lot of what makes them so terrifying is not the actual concept of what's going on, but the way in which it's presented. And to me, that is not as nearly as an effective way to scare somebody. As you know, it's to me, if you want to show me a scary picture, I can look at that and I can say, that's a picture, that's in somebody's imagination, that's somebody's interpretation of something that's not real. That to me, that takes me out of the movie. That kind of freaks it freaks me out for a second, that visual, and then it clicks in my head. That's not even, I can't comprehend that. But what makes it interesting in other movies is when you get something that could is believable. I'm not saying there has to be everything's boring and there can't be any special effects and that it has to all be rooted in reality, because most movies aren't. But the problem is that you cross a threshold where this movie kind of straddles the line between, it straddles the line between fears that are, between scaring people by showing their fears and showing mental issues that people have, and then it'll shift from that directly into something that's gory and physical. And to me, that's kind of that constant back and forth jerking around. You don't know what's supposed to be scaring you because you're so confused by these metaphors and these things appearing in front of you, and you're trying to decipher what they mean and what it has to do with the character's background. But at the same time, then all of a sudden you just see crazy stuff happening in front of you, and you're like, well, wait, now instead of focusing on what this imagery is supposed to be, I'm looking at, like, some dude without a head or something crazy like that. So that to me is just not effective in this movie.
Yeah, so like we said before, the characters are very well done. I think they're very well written. The acting is good. We already discussed
this. This is one of the few cases of good child acting in modern movies.
Everyone was good, I think. Like we said, Pennywise, he's good. Don't worry about that. He's very good.
Yeah.
The writing is good. They develop their characters very well. And I want to give them props for, there's 7 different kids, I think, in this losers club. And they really have to focus on rooting their fears out in every single one of them. And they give enough screen time, I think, for every one of them. I know it's a tough thing to do. They can't show all their parents. They can't show all their home life. They can't show all that. But I think they give enough time for each individual character to show what their greatest fears are. And I think they do a good job of that.
Yeah, they do.
They give equal time to develop their fears, what they're afraid of. And I think
you just get to know them.
I think the characters are done well.
Yeah, so I agree with everything you said about the characters. I mean, I feel like they're real people. That's the beauty of it. I mean, that is effective acting right there. Yeah, it's the coupling of that with the way that this film is directed that gives you the feeling that the kids are real. Their fear is not so much with what we talked about earlier with the crazy representations of everything, but in the scenes where you're learning about these people and you're seeing what's going on, it's filmed in such. Muschietti does a great job of really taking you in the perspective of these kids. There's scenes, where they're sitting there, there's characters that have conflicts with their parents, and I mean, you can see, and you can feel, that's what it is, you can feel what's going on in these characters' minds, the emotions they're feeling, the way they're getting freaked out by their environment, what's around them. I mean, you feel like you're right there. That's just masterful directing. And then on top of that, when you look at the scenes that are these horror scenes, these intense scenes, they're always shot. There's always that cliche like close up to the face, and then something happens, or there's something behind somebody, or there's all those kind of shots that occur all the time in these types of movies. But there's a way to do it. There's a way not to do it, and the way not to do it is to be always using predictable shots, predictable locations, predictable use of foreground and background, and what you're seeing in the shot, and what's just off the side of the shot. And this movie does have some of that. I mean, it has to in order to be effective and to be understandable as a mainstream horror thriller movie. But there are some really great scenes where you become intrigued as to what's going on, because it's that narrow line of showing just enough but not so much to overwhelm the audience. You need to keep them interested, keep their mind focused on something, and then you need to all of a sudden shift that. But when you shift that, it needs to be purposeful, direct, and efficient. And I feel like this film does a good job of that.
We went over acting, writing, directing. That's all flawless, I think. Except there is some problems with the writing, I think. They do throw a lot of stuff in the movie that I think they just don't explain well at all.
And part of that is because they want your money for a sequel.
Yeah, and there is I think it's a 1,000-page book, and they had to make it into a 2-hour movie. And there's a lot of things they throw in this movie that you just don't know what's going on. Like, I think in the trailer you see blood coming out of the sink. They never explain that. They never explain a lot of things that happen. There's a lot of plot holes, I think, of what, like, this could have happened, what happens to the other kids that got captured maybe at the end, and yada, yada, yada. There's just a lot of things that have loose ends, and they just don't explain. And, yeah, they probably want to set up a sequel but I feel like the writing is a little messy. I feel like it is a little rushed. The movie is a little rushed. I feel like there's just things that are just they just don't explain.
In those few cases that aren't explained, the rest of it's pretty good.
Yeah, and it just leaves you kind of empty-handed, and I wanted a little more explaining and more ends to be tied up.
Yeah.
So, as a whole, this movie was pretty good. It was a good movie. It had a good tone. I think a tone is really important in a movie like this.
Yeah, you gotta maintain, either you're telling a scary story, you're telling an interesting story, or you're telling a happy story, you're telling a story of growth and development. And you can tell multiple things at the same time, but you need to make sure that it's very clear what you're trying to convey, whichever one of those settings you're in. And I feel like this movie definitely does a good job in that.
Yeah, and I feel like this movie definitely had a lot of comedy, especially Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things. He stood out.
Funny.
Yeah, he was funny, dude. He stood out a lot. He was funny. Once again, the kid actors all good.
The writing for the character was great, and he took the role.
Funny, and they had a good mix of horror and comedy. I think when it tried to be scary, when it tried to be funny, it had a good mixture of that. And all the kids were funny in their own unique way. They all had their little things.
Yeah, little quirks about them.
Yeah, and so the characters were good. So.
Yeah, and then one other thing that impacts tone a lot to me is the music. What use of is there music? What type of music? And how important is the music in the scene? And a lot of this movie was, there was no music for a lot of it. For the suspension and tension, there was not a score, there was not a soundtrack, but there was a few things that were, you could hear these creepy sounds going on, you could hear it's that feeling of tension that it builds before you see what's going to happen, and that to me is one of the cornerstones of establishing a tone for any film or any scene. Is really making sure that the context needs to be provided.
Yeah.
If the context is provided, your mind will make the rest of the conclusions, and that's what creates true effective fear.
Yeah, and like we said, there was there a lot of the scares were in the trailer, but those scares were scary because they would stop the music completely and they would just show the clown doing its thing, and I think that's kind of freaky.
It's that suspense, and then all of a sudden
it is freaky. Like there's some shots where they just show Pennywise doing stuff, no music, just him in one frame. It is freaky. I mean, it creeps you out.
Which is just definitely complimented by Bill Skarsgård. I mean,
he was good.
That guy. I mean, you said he didn't deserve an Oscar. I don't know. I mean, I feel like he definitely did a great job. I mean, again, I don't know if he deserves an Oscar either, but he'll always stand out in my mind from now on as probably one of the great horror villains.
Definitely committed.
His performance.
Good makeup, by the way.
Great makeup. Great costume design and everything. It was supposed to take place in 88, 89. Mm-hmm. The setting was right. They even got the cars. They got an old Pontiac Trans Am. That thing is pretty sick. they've got the setting right, they've got the context right, and that overall aspect of the filmmaking was well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my overview of this film: good acting, great acting, good character development, good writing for the most part, good directing. I think Muschietti is it's good. He directed Mama. This is his second film, and I think he did very well. Horror-wise, it was okay. I mean, it was good when it was just Pennywise as a makeup clown, Bill Skarsgård, but when they went on to the CGI, all that, it was not that good. I didn't like it. But it was very good. I'm going to give this movie a 6 out of 10.
And as for my final thoughts, I feel like as a movie, it was good. It was entertaining, and it told us a message. It's got to have a theme, and it drove that home. I went into this movie thinking that it was going to be a horror movie, and to some people it probably still is, and to me there were definitely elements of that, but I looked at it as more of a thriller and a look at a look at childhood, a look at growing and developing our personalities.
Yeah.
And to that point, I will say, I thought it succeeded definitely. Everything that we talked about, all the production was there, all the writing was mostly there, all of the acting was incredibly successful. I'll give it a final rating of 7, just because I'm not as experienced with these types of movies as I am with a lot of other types. So to me, it was still a very fresh and new experience. To people who are hardcore horror aficionados, they probably aren't going to agree with me, but again, I'll give it a 7 because I feel like as a storytelling device and as a method of entertainment, it succeeded.
Yeah, definitely good message.
Yeah.
With it, and yeah.
It was worth a watch. I'd say it's definitely worth a watch. So that gives us a combined review score of 6.5
out of 10. That's pretty good. I'd say that's an okay status. I would definitely recommend seeing it. Just it's getting hyped up. It has great reviews by a lot of people, so you may not agree with us, but it's just our opinion. That's what we thought of the movie, and thank you guys for watching. Definitely go see the movie. I think it's a good watch.
It's worth a watch. Go see it.
Yeah.
All right. Peace out.